Hey, what's up, agency owners? I'm excited to have another great episode. I have a good buddy and a mastermind member, Dean, who just recently sold his agency. And we're going to talk about the process of how to get there, how to get to a point where you have the opportunity to sell. And then also, what is the process like? And what is life like after? So let's go ahead and get into the episode. Hey, Dean, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, for the people that haven't checked out the first episode, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, my name's Dean, and I am the CEO of Worth E-commerce, which is an email marketing and SMS marketing agency for e-commerce companies.
Awesome. And let's kind of jump into it because I was so excited for you. I know we were chatting for a long time about the opportunity to sell and the process there. Let's talk about kind of getting to that point. What do you feel? What's the level or what were the things that you had to do in order to get you to the point where people wanted to buy you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot that went into it, and a lot that's happened over time, and kind of going all the way back to the start of my agency career. The first agency that I started and kind of co-founded with my current business partner was a UX design agency. And we had this idea that we were going to be like digital nomads, travel the world, go to Thailand and Australia and Asia and all these places and make a lot of money and live on beaches and drink beer. And we did that for like a year, but then we ended up just essentially broke and in debt. And both of us ended up living at our parents', or in my case, my grandparents' house for about 6 months to a year, on and off afterwards, because we just failed. And at that point, that's actually when I discovered you guys, the Jason Swenk masterclass. And I ended up stopped doing business with Ryan, who's my co-founder, and went on my own path. And one of the things that you guys had taught was you got to have a mission and values, right? In order to get people to join you, in order to work with the people that you want to work with. And that to me was like the first foundational step. Was, before it was like very selfish and self-centered, and there was no sense of like community anywhere I went. And so when I moved back to Oregon and kind of decided like, hey, I want to build something where I can have a team around me. I have a mission. There's people I want to impact. And my mission was very personal. It came from, my family. My parents and grandparents were both small business owners and entrepreneurs. My grandma had a kitchen design business and ended up selling it when she retired. And my mom had a vintage clothing business before Shopify, like when Etsy was blowing up, but that didn't go well for her. And 2008 hit, and it kind of hit them hard. But so I kind of had this vision of I wanted to do something where I could help small and medium-sized businesses grow, and I wanted to do that with a group of people that I loved hanging out with, that I thought were superstars, and wanted to do it locally at first, and just kind of grew that over time. Fast forward, that company was called Instant Email Copy, which is what it was called when I joined you. And Ryan approached me, and he was doing e-commerce himself. He was actually building stores, and I was doing email for e-commerce. And he's like, hey, like, why don't we join forces and use our skills to like grow again? And by that time, like, our skills had leveled out, where when I first joined, he had all the digital experience and I was doing like enterprise sales. And so we kind of felt like a power balance, and we went and created Worth E-commerce. And we did like 2 weeks in my hometown of Bend, Oregon, where we just like figured out like, what are our values? Like, who do we want to be? What kind of people do we want to bring on? What type of people do we want to work with? And setting that was like the first step for us to continue to grow over these last few years, 2 years actually.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I love that. I love that story. And I love that, there's so many people that talk about being a digital nomad and doing agencies. And I'm like, that's good to kind of start. And I'm sure that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
But like you said, it's just centered around you rather than like when you start realizing, and I think what you guys realized was, how can I elevate my team? Which will, right? Like you get to the top of the mountain, but it's kind of lonely at the very top. Like it's more I actually had more significance of growing our team than actually growing the agency. And you have to have a purpose, like you were saying, behind that. And a lot of times it takes people a while to figure that out.
Yeah.
Um, because you're just like, well, what am I good at? Like, what do I like? What do I believe in? And how do I surround myself with those people? What were some of the other things now that you had a purpose and you were building the right team, that you felt that you had to do in order to get to the point where you had the opportunity to sell it?
Yeah. So I think it was really important. And one of the things I figured out was that, at least in my space in e-commerce, I started working in a vertical niche, both from a service perspective, a client perspective, and software perspective. And it's a little bit of a risk from the software side, but basically I chose a software company that I loved working with, who had great customer service, great customer experience. They weren't the best at what they did at the time, but they had a similar vision of wanting to help similar types of customers and clients. That company is called Klaviyo, and I joined them when they had like 400 customers. Now they have like 60,000. And so we got to really ride that wave, uh, and become experts in that specific skill set, that specific software, helping specific companies, which led us to being able to charge a premium, created better processes, systems, and we're kind of like first, maybe not first to market in email marketing, but like first to market using Klaviyo. And now we're a platinum partner. We're on their advisory board. We're connecting with their leadership, learning about email, learning about SMS. Like it's this very like positive relationship. They send us clients, they help us with marketing, and that itself has been a huge boost in terms of sales and revenue.
Yeah.
And it all started with a simple system. Like I built a basic system that worked, and over time, it's like whenever I bring on new employees, I'll show them, hey, here's the first original document from instant email copy of like what we use to serve clients, and then it's like here's what it is now, and it's like holy shit, like it's crazy how
Yeah.
much it evolved.
Pretty big difference.
Pretty big difference, yeah. But what's really cool about it is, as like going back to building the team, is like most of the changes to the document weren't done by me. They were done by people on the team who started to become better at what they do, or more experienced and kind of committed to that, which has been really cool to see.
Yeah, over the past couple of years in the mastermind, I've seen you really kind of transition from the owner to the CEO,
Yeah.
and I talk a lot about that to all the agencies, right? Like because ultimately, the end goal of every agency is to exit in some way, whether it be like you selling the agency or like other members that exit their current role, right? They exit to a chairman so they can go do other things, that kind of stuff. Um, what, and it's sometimes difficult when people actually on your team start getting better than you
Yeah.
and you feel really dumb, right? Like, and the goal, I tell everybody, the goal is for you to be the dumbest person in the room for your team. Was that a challenge for you? I'm not saying you're dumb, obviously, but you sold for a lot of money, so obviously laugh on me if I'm calling you dumb. But I remember going through that, going, oh my god, the agency doesn't need me anymore because everyone else is better at the things I used to do. Did you struggle with that at all?
Yeah, I think initially, like I had positioned myself as like the email marketing guy, right? Like people would come to work with me. People would come, clients would call me. Like everyone would want to work with me, right? And like that just wasn't. I even built like a course where like I was like advertising email marketing, and I was the main face, and that was great. But it didn't allow other people to flourish. And so when we when I ended up merging, what happened, and this is actually feedback I got from my team, was like, Dean, we feel your presence too much. Like you're in here like throwing curveballs to like a process we're trying to build, and it's kind of messing things up because we feel like we have to listen to you. And I remember like taking that feedback and being like, well, this is like is this like what idea is better? Is it better to do it this way or the way they want to do it? And there's times where it's like I have the experience and I kind of like as a business owner, like, I don't know if that's going to work, because I've tried it before. versus like, hey, I think you should just do it this way. There's like a difference there, a fine line to kind of cross where you're giving advice versus like commanding in something you don't know about. And so I always tell people, and I even tell my leadership team, like there's a point where you go from like becoming the email marketing expert or the XYZ expert to, like you said, the CEO or to a leader, and your responsibilities and roles change. And that's something I learned, from you and from the mastermind group, different agencies, and something I'm teaching to my leadership team as they're going from like copywriters or designers or, admin even to leadership role. It's like, hey, like your main job isn't to always do email. Like you got to grow and help build the team just like you've grown and built.
Yeah.
And totally different skill set.
Oh yeah, definitely. And some people can't do it.
Yeah.
It's so I applaud you for being able to do that. So let's talk about now that we've kind of talked about getting there and that let's talk about what was it like when people started coming to you offering you money for the agency?
Yeah. It was interesting. Like it was a long process, and my mindset on it was I just kind of want to know what the market's like, see what's out there, and see like what are people purchasing for, like who is selling, why are they selling. Like I kind of wanted to soak that knowledge up. So we actually ended up working with a broker, and I think you'd refer to him, Todd Taskey, over in DC. And when I first connected with him, we were still pretty small, and my main fear was, hey, like, are we too early to do this? And he was like, no, like, just like get to know people, get to know what's going on. And, you'll kind of figure out what you want. Are you still there?
Oh yeah, yeah. I just put
Okay.
you on solo.
Okay, good.
I was featuring you.
Featuring. Okay. Um, and so, we started the process early and started to connect with companies. And usually it was like, hey, you guys are too young. You're less than 2 years old. Like we don't feel comfortable with it. It was a lot of no's, right? But a lot of like, hey, come back to us in a year or two because we see your growth curve. We see the potential. E-commerce, blew up during COVID. It's still blowing up. So a lot of people saw it, but we were just a little bit too early, right? But by being too early, we kind of learned, okay, what are they actually looking for, right? Because every company, before they would do like a letter of intent or anything like that, they would send like a list of items they wanted to know about. And so over time, I built up this list, and by the point we were ready and our EBITDA was high enough and people were more interested, I had everything ready, right? And EBITDA is obviously one of the most important pieces. The age of the company is important. So that was a hurdle for us because we had started Worth in 2019 and we had to justify our experience, before that was built. And at that time, it was just a matter of like, okay, these guys are growing. It's very clear. And my worry was still, hey, we're a little too early. Like if we wait 6 months, maybe we'll get a lot more. So that became kind of a part of the negotiation piece, was just like, just look at the growth curve and tendency of things. And, we'll get to a number that makes sense. So I feel like I'm missing your original question.
No, that was perfect. What were some of the important things that people were asking for outside of EBITDA?
Yeah, they wanted to know like our forecast and budget and model and like what that looked like. They wanted to know our uh, like our leadership team. It's like who's in place and who's at the helm and like what's their experience. That was super important. Um, they wanted to know our plans if we were going to expand in any other market sets or stay niche. So that was an interesting one, and we started doing SMS marketing, which helped with a lot of things. Um, and they wanted to know like, was our ship in order? Like, did we have valid contracts? A big piece we learned about was like, if you have contracts with customers, are they transferable or not? Right? Because if they're not, that kind of changes the entire setup of the deal structure and takes a ton of time, right? So we get to like 100 customers or partners or clients, and it's non-transferable. Like you're in for a lot of extra work. So kind of things like that, like our employment agreements. They wanted to kind of look at some of those things, but the biggest one that they would always focus on was EBITDA and age of company.
Yeah, yeah. No, those are all real important, and especially like I always tell you and the mastermind members, like when you sign clients and in your agreement, make sure they are transferable.
Yeah.
Or because a lot of times when agencies are bought, most people don't know this, it's an asset purchase. So they're buying your contracts. And if
Yep.
I've seen some mastermind members in the past where they've actually had to go back to their key clients and go, hey, and they have to show their hand saying, hey, I'm about to be bought. I need you to sign this. So it allows you to transfer the agreement over to the new agency. And then if if the client doesn't sign it, the deal may not be done. Like it's
Yeah.
literally so many loops, which if you could just throw that in agreement saying, hey, I can transfer this clause just with written notice to you.
Yeah. And to
So,
be honest, I think we just got lucky. Like we
yeah.
just happened to have that in the beginning and we didn't have to worry about it. I don't think I would have ever thought about that before
No,
you
no
asked.
one does.
Yeah.
No one does until someone tells you.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. Well, let's talk about, let's say after you get the letter of intent, what was that
Yeah.
like? What did you go through? Well, and how long was that process?
Oh man. So getting the letter of intent was pretty tough. From like another thing they want to know is like your market position and what are sort of the areas where you feel you're weak because they really want to know where they can add value, right? So they want to like they don't want to find something that's broken. They want to find something that's working that they could put fuel on and create a bigger fire, right? That's kind of the mentality. So they would ask these questions where I felt very exposed and like very naked in the business. Like like I don't know these things, or we don't really do that much marketing. It's more outbound sales, and so they're like, oh, we're a marketing agency. We could help there. So they're really like they're not picking you apart, but they're trying to like identify is this a worthwhile time investment? Because once you get the LOI, something comes in called schedules, and it's like it's hell. Uh, for us, they were ready to close quick. They were ready to make a deal, so it took about 45 days or 50 days actually. Usually, it can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. But what schedules is this document you get from lawyers that's like 50 questions, right? But it's not just 50 questions. It's like give me every single contract you've ever signed with every client, right? And pull it up and list any that are missing. Give me every single employment agreement you've signed with every client, with every employee you've ever had. Give me every single complaint any employee has ever made against you. Give me any single complaint any former client has made against you. Give me all your liabilities and insurance documents. Give me your financials, for the last 5 years in all of your tax returns. Like, it's just this
It's,
like
yeah, it's hell.
it's hell. It's hell. And then they want to know your projected forecast, right, for the next year. So you have to build a budgeting model, which I'd never done before. And I ended up hiring a CFO who's referred by someone in the mastermind, Matt Putra, who helped build out this budgeting model. But then every week they'd want an update. It's like, oh, where did you hit this week? And you're like, Jesus, like I don't do this till the end of the month. You want to know every single like hour, and and then the lawyers get involved, right? And they're battling stuff back and forth. And like, is it an asset sale or a stock sale? And where do you want to be incorporated? And are you registered in every state that you hire correctly, which we weren't? So they had to like go back and do all this stuff and then negotiating, price points and the LOI they give you what they want the offer to be. So a lot of the cash sort of conversations happen pre LOI. Then they give you the LOI, and then all the legal negotiations, which I had no idea what most of it meant, right? Like, what is an asset sale? I had no idea. How are you going to set it up so you can get taxed, like a crazy amount? And they have to battle that back and forth. And so it was hell. It was like a second job.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it really took my eye off the ball of growing the agency in retrospect, because most of my day was focused on gathering this information, like living a double life of like, I'm not ready to tell employees, I'm not ready to tell clients, but I'm stressed out of my mind and no one knows why. You know, and keeping it under wraps was kind of strange, but yeah, it was like, you got to be prepared to basically work another 20 hours a week
Yeah.
just on gathering information. Um, and then phone calls after phone calls with your broker and your lawyer, and being ready to invest in a lawyer who's good, who can.
Yeah, you mentioned two really big things. One, don't tell anybody. right? Like, because if it gets out, people jump ship. People don't like change. They'll like
Yeah.
change after they've kind of witnessed it. And a lot of times when you're looking for the right person to buy you as you're evaluating, you got to make sure the culture fits there. And is it
Yeah.
right for the team as well, right? Because, they're the ones that got you here. You wouldn't be here without them. The other thing is you mentioned kind of took your eye off the ball. So a lot of times what I found is, I mean, this happened to, Justin, one of our members. He took his eye off the ball, was going through an acquisition. Uh, they pulled out the last minute and
Mm.
almost went under because they were like, oh, I'm going to get all these millions of dollars. I don't have to do anything. It'll be your problem in 6 months. Who gives a shit? Right. Because everything we do is a lag of,
Yeah.
a quarter or 6 months out.
Yeah. It
And
really
then
is.
then the deal doesn't go through. Or and I think too, I think when agencies go and buy other agencies, I think they do this on purpose to be like, then they can change the deal at the last minute
Yeah.
and be like,
That
I
was
got you.
that was my big concern, and because right, so the deal was supposed to close on a Friday, didn't close. There's some legal issue that the lawyers were battling about, and everyone was getting deal fatigue. Like on both sides, everyone was like, "Fuck, I'm tired." Excuse my language. Like, sorry, I'm tired of talking about this deal. It's been 45 days of this every day, and so like I always felt like at any point the deal would be done, and I just wasted 45 days. At the same time, I felt like I got a master's of business, in 45 days because like the private equity guys, and I think what was really nice about this deal is like just like you said, the culture fit was huge. Like we just got along so well that even with the deal fatigue and the stress and like the money at stake, like we could get off, like we could have a private conversation with no lawyers, no one else present, and it was like we were in this together. Like that was super important to me, and those guys are awesome. But they taught me all these things about accounting, right? Like for example, a lot of larger companies they use GAAP accounting, which I never even heard that term ever in any sort of business article I'd ever read, and none of my bookkeepers ever told me about GAAP accounting, and it's a pain in the ass. Like it sucks to do, and it takes a lot of time, but it's really important to see like an accrual method versus a cash method and how that affects the deal, especially when you sell, because there's things called uh, deferral, revenue deferral, right? It's like if you get paid up front, this is another huge learning lesson for me, which is like
Yep.
so hard to head around. Is if you get paid up front for work in GAAP accounting, that's not counted as revenue until you do the work,
Yep.
right? So all of a sudden, you think you have all this cash in your bank that you go to sell. They're actually like, no, you actually owe us, and you're like, what the hell? Like I don't understand this at all.
Yeah.
So the lawyers and the broker had to, and the PE guys had to walk me through. Like I'm not actually being screwed. It just feels like it.
Yeah. And usually, and that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because that happened to us as well. Because I mean, hell, I always tell the story on the podcast of one client that, we changed our payment terms and one client came to us 8 years later, but and we're like, hey, I'm ready, but they paid up front, right? Like, so, we all think of agencies getting paid up front as awesome, and it is, and you should
Yeah,
continue to do that
absolutely.
as much as you possibly can. But when you do go to sell, there is going to be a reckoning, and you're going to be like, oh, and usually they do that right at the end. They know it's
Yeah,
coming. Those
they do.
bastards know it's coming, and they
Yeah.
do it at the end and go, oh no, and then you're like, fuck it.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, Dean, man, I'm so happy and proud to see how you've grown over the past couple of years. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the audience if they're thinking about doing something like you've done?
Yeah, I would say definitely get a broker. It feels expensive, but they get better deals
They
and they
do.
find good fits, and Todd, to his credit, like we probably spoke with 10 or 15 companies and most of them were not the right fit. And, he told me early on that like we're gonna talk to a lot of people. It's gonna be a lot of time. and you get a lot of like deal ideas, and then all of a sudden you'll be presented with a deal, and your gut will tell you if it's right or not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of exactly what happened. Was, there are all these companies. I was like, this is not the right fit. I don't like these guys. There's something off, or they're too huge, and I don't want to be like just a cog. And with this one, it was like, met them, got the offer, felt good. My felt good to my partner, and we went with it.
Yeah.
So to get a broker and get a good lawyer and a good accountant, hopefully they're all a team together and they've worked
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine doing it without, acquisitions experience.
Yeah, no, having a good broker is key, and all the other assets as well. And if you guys want to know more about Todd, just hit me up and I'll do an introduction for you guys. Well, Dean, I'm so happy for you, man. And this has all been great. And for everyone listening, if you guys want to be in a point where you can scale your agency to a point where you have the opportunity to exit and have a number of different agency owners, including me, helping you get to there and advising you to get to the next level. And hopefully that next level is to sell for the number that you actually want. I'd love to invite all of you to go apply for the Digital Agency Elite. Go to digitalagencyelite.com. And this is the mastermind that as Dean's been in for the past couple of years and is still in. Make sure you go do that now. And until next time, have a swank day.